Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the breakdown. I'm Tone, and it's really fantastic for me to have you here watching my videos, and especially this one. And look, I can't believe that it's already been over 6 months since I have really done anything here on the tube. I did my last video on here speaking about how I was going to do less on here. I didn't realize it was going to be do nothing on here at the time. And I moved to doing some work using Twitch. Now, granted, that's even stopped for now. I've got some technical issues with computers and all that sort of thing. I'm working on getting that fixed, so I'm just using my phone. But yeah, the reason I went to Twitch was because I was able to, I found I was more freely able to share the content that I wanted to. And then, it was up there for 2 weeks or so. And then anyone that wants to watch it can in that time. And then it gets removed, disappears. On the contrary, any material that I've got here on the tube, it seems that even if it's a year past that video, if I reference to it and draw attention to it because I was right, well, the tube removes it. I found that very interesting. Case in point, I said mandates for the jab would occur, and they did. The video in which I explicitly said so was pulled down within about a week of me saying so. So even a humble little channel like mine is checked out. It's targeted. It's a very targeted approach at the truth that's being shared on this platform. But I'm sure that if you're watching my channel, you are already fully aware that occurs. So I don't really need to go any more detail about that at all. There's no more detail required. Now, basically, being this is my first video back, and I'm hoping that I can do some more videos following this one. I just wanted to have a general chat, general conversation, sort of draw a connection between what I spoke about in my second to last video, or even my last few videos, excuse me, and then sort of bring you up to speed on what's going on now. And so let's do that. In the last few videos that I did, I was talking about the creation of all this fiat currency that had been occurring over the last 2 years, or 2 years plus now, to combat the war on C-19. And the fact that that currency had to go somewhere to become legitimate currency, because it gets printed out of thin air. Every dollar of it, every whatever you want, any currency, it gets printed out of thin air. And immediately, in order for it to become a justified amount of currency, it must first go through the debt process and be borrowed into existence, whether that be governments or whether that be personal debts to buy homes, it doesn't matter. It's got to be borrowed into existence, or borrowed to justify its existence. And of course, debt is a promise to pay back, and any default means that obviously that debt wasn't paid back and delegitimizes that amount of currency. Case in point, the 2008 crash. So that should have woken up, and I think it did, woke up a lot of people. It did certainly put things into context for me, even though I was aware of how the system worked before then. it certainly woke me up to just how serious it is. And this is no different. So, excuse me. So, basically, back then I was explaining that the property market was on fire, and that was largely because banks were lending currency out to people they really should not have been lending currency out to. And before, 6 months ago, in my second to last video, I spoke about how banks had tightened up their lending policy. So people that were probably able to borrow in the middle of 2020 and the early part of 2021, people with that same sort of financial profile no longer could, around September, October, whenever it was that they tightened it up. Obviously, rates hadn't moved yet then. Now, you would probably know by now that the Reserve Bank on Tuesday, this Tuesday, raised rates here in Australia by 25 basis points. And they've just raised rates over in the US again, 50 basis points. Now, cast your mind back to around about 6 months ago, even then, before the banks did their slight tightening on lending policy. They were spruiking this idea that rates would not need to rise. There'd be no need for rate hikes until 2023 at the earliest, and most likely 2024. Now, I explicitly said in a number of videos, just before I finished doing them, that was a fallacy. Rates would have to rise well and truly before then. And the reason is because they'll tell you that inflation at the moment is out of control because of the skirmish going on over in the east there. I'm not going to say the name of the place. You know where it's all happening. That is the cause of all of this inflation now. It's also apparently the reason for, and I'll go into this a little bit more in detail in a moment, but it's also the reason for the coming shortage on food and those sorts of things, which is a complete, it's a joke. Like, it's ridiculous that they're getting away with it, but unfortunately, the number of people that swallowed lies all through 2020 and 2021, and are probably still following a lot of them now, they're going to swallow the same story, or this story. They're going to swallow this story just the same as they've swallowed all the rest of it. Those who are awake obviously know that it's a fallacy. The inflation that we're seeing right now came about because of all of the currency creation that came into existence and was justified through lending in order to prop up, and mostly it was governments borrowing it, to prop up the world economies to prevent the collapse. Because if you reduce productivity for any reason, it doesn't matter if it's a health reason or it's a climate reason or anything like that. If you reduce productivity down to near zero, how do you prop up a market? How do you prop up the world market? You must have, currency velocity. Now, there's so many angles I can take on that, and I'm going to have to sort of rein it in because I don't want to make this a too long of a video. But anyway, so the inflation that we're seeing now is based on what's already occurred. It's not what suddenly is occurring now. Anyway, rates have been raised in 2022. Now, I'm not surprised at all that has occurred. I thought it might be in a few months' time, but I felt pretty certain it was going to be in 2022, and I knew for sure it wasn't going to be 2023 or 2024. That rhetoric, that kind of stuff that they were spruiking back then, where they said, hey, we're building back better, we're going to make it through this and we're going to come out stronger. Understand, we've entered into, as of the end of 2019, we have entered into crisis after crisis criteria. That's what we're in now. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue to be crisis, a little bit of relief, crisis, a little bit of relief. Government control is going to increase 100% certainly. Doesn't matter who wins the coming election. In fact, I'll just mention this right now. We've got this seemingly more relaxed feel right now. We've got an election this month. Rest assured, after the election is done, doesn't matter who you vote in. I mean, it does to a degree, but it doesn't matter who gets voted in. The next crisis is going to hit, and it's going to be pretty difficult for people that aren't ready for it. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, rates have risen, not surprised. And what that's going to do, and I spoke about this, I said 6 months ago, I was talking about if anyone was in a position to be thinking about maybe buying a house, I said, most likely there's going to be, and I'm in this boat. I was looking for a place. There's most likely going to be better times ahead in order to look for somewhere to buy. And the reason is, and it's a sad reality, there are going to be defaults on loans. There's going to be. It's unavoidable. Banks have overlent, and they've overlent to people who've overborrowed. And rates are actually going to increase faster than they decreased. That's my personal belief. I can't prove that, but that's how the system is operating. That's how it's operated for a very, very long time. The system, as I spoke about in my previous videos, the system is designed to slowly eat away at the middle class. That's what it does. And more people drop down into that lower class level where government assistance is what props them up. So when I use the term middle class, I mean government assistance is little, if not none, unless you're going to class capital negative gearing on a property or something, government assistance. But that's a tax deduction, so I'm not including that. I'm talking about Centrelink. I'm talking about social payments, those sorts of things. People are constantly dropping down into that lower level where they have to rely on that assistance, and the system is designed to do that, to increase that number of dependent people. So this is just another cycle coming around once again. Obviously, we've had record low rates, and the record low rates were necessary to deal with what we've just had. We've just had 2 years of just complete, utter insanity. And that insanity goes all the way to so many different things. But in particular, just the amount of currency that has come into existence or has come into existence in terms of the debt is promised to be paid back. And it's been legitimised by housing prices going stupidly high. I was talking, so this is anecdotal only, I was talking to a number of people at a number of house sales, and I just went there for interest. I wanted to see what the housing market here in Victoria was looking like. And a lot of them were just there to observe, like myself. and they looked and they said, we've got a pretty strong feeling, and I had to agree with them, pretty strong feeling that in some areas we could see a 15% sell-off. We've had a 20% rise in 1 year. And what causes that? An increased ability to borrow. Mostly by people who should not be borrowing that amount and should not be allowed to borrow that amount. And any type of interest rate rise could potentially be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that's it. They lose their deposit. The house must be sold or get sold by the bank for less than what it was bought for, because the bank just needs their capital back. They don't have to worry about the interest, and they don't have to worry about the deposit. In order to justify the currency that came into existence through the borrowing process, they just need what they lent out back. So potentially the deposit is lost, and the person or people that bought those properties lose their deposit because it just disappears into thin air because it's not paid back by the person that buys the house. And that pushes the house price down because there's a supply that comes back into existence. So we've been talking about this idea that there's an undersupply of housing. I don't know that that's going to be a problem in a year. I think there's going to be a supply come back. And I'm counting on that at the moment because I haven't chased the market. I'm an investor and I don't usually chase the market. I wait for the market to come to me. And that's how I've been getting by for the last 6 months since I had to stop working. But that's another story. I'm sure you're already aware of where I'm at with that as of October last year. So, but God is good and he's been taking care of me. And as I say, I wait for the market to come to me. I take advantage of the market, and this is the share market in particular. And then I move forward with that. But buying a house and moving to a new location, I'm not going to treat that any differently. When I bought my house in Adelaide in 2011, had to think about that then. So over a decade ago, I did so on a interest-only loan for 2 years, and then it was a variable loan. And at the time, I told anyone that would listen, don't lock in your rates. Don't lock in your rates. They're coming down. Now, the majority of people who I gave that advice to or gave that suggestion to, because got to be careful. I'm not a financial advisor, and there's laws out there that say, if you're not a licensed advisor, you can't give advice. Well, I have to qualify everything and say, I'm telling you what I'm doing and what I would do if I were you, and that's about as good as I can go. But anyway, as I said, back then, that's what I did. I didn't lock in my rate. And of course, the rates came down from much, much higher than what they are now, all the way down to 0.1%. So I'd say I probably got that right. And I've never locked it in. And it's allowed me to pay it off faster as well, because a variable rate, you can just keep hitting it as hard as you like. Fixed rate, fixed payments. So that's what I chose to do. But that's another story. But in this case, the market has gone crazy high, especially in the last 2 years, especially in the last year. And it was on the back of all of this added currency that has come into existence or has been promised to come into existence. I suspect quite a lot of that is actually going to be defaulted on at some point. I don't know that that's going to cause something like what happened in 2008, because they changed the banking system since then so that it can't actually happen like that. That's why they've been able to keep printing like they have. Excuse me. So I'm not surprised that rates have gone up, and I expect that they will do so several times more this year. I don't know how high that is, but anyone that needs to prepare, I hope you've already been preparing. But if this is the message that gets you to wake up and say, right, I've got to get this debt under control, then let it be. Let this be the warning. I hope that you weren't buying houses last year and paying too much for your houses. I really do. And if you're thinking about buying a house, I'm not doing so yet. That's not advice. That's just what I'm doing. Just a real quick message about share market stuff. Be very careful at the moment. We don't have history of swings like what we've got going on in the last few years. It's been good to make a steady living, but obviously when you make a living out of the share market in that kind of environment, others are being made poorer because they're making poor choices. Because in this current climate, a lot of it hasn't been driven by productivity because of things being so slow. So the market has been propped up solely on all of this debt currency that's come in. And that's why the markets have gone so good, especially since 08, well, 09, 10, like after everything sort of settled down. So 10, 11, 12, 2012, things started to pick up based on all of the added currency that's come into existence. And a brief mention, give gold and silver a shout out. They aren't even close to representing what they should represent in terms of price. So again, this is what I'm doing. Again, I say, if you haven't got gold and silver, I can't really understand why you don't. And in my opinion, it would be smarter to be getting that rather than trying to go and get yourself into debt to buy a house at this point. That's just my thinking. And the reason is because housing prices, I believe, are going to come back some. And gold and silver, well, they're highly manipulated at the moment. They don't truly reflect how much currency is in existence, and that's what they're actually supposed to do. All commodities are supposed to do that, and we're going to see that. Inflation is going through the roof. It actually already did go through the roof. They're just allowing it to be talked about now. As I said, inflation was under control 6 months ago. No, it wasn't. And that's why it's no accident that I knew rates were going to rise way before 2023. It's not rocket science. Inflation had already occurred. Inflation is just simply new currency in the mix. And it's as simple as that. And any economist and anyone that wants to try and spruik some complicated formula to suggest that there's so many other elements to it, the simple thing is, simplified right down, new currency printed by banks in order to lend out to borrowers. That's inflation, and that's as simple as you need to make it. So, no accident that I'm correct about that. Now, on this video, I do want to just touch on something that's very important. It's the main reason that I actually came back. I'm not here to talk about the inflation too much. I'm just using that as a connecting to what I'm about to say. And I'm not here to, I was right. I want people to understand that there's a reason why I was right. and there's an important factor that comes after that. If you've gone into supermarkets, and I'm talking major cities, or into, massive supermarket chains. Again, I'm not going to name them, but you'll know what they are and which ones I mean. If you've gone into those, and you should have noticed by now, surely, that simple things, milk, bread, the staple items have been going up incrementally. Now, 10 cents here, 20 cents here, 30 cents here may not look like much, but as a percentage of what it was before to what it is now, it's much, much larger than the number of what they're saying inflation is at the moment. It's more than that. And it has been more than that for, about a year, but it's starting to really filter through now. I noticed the basic bread in one of these used to be $1.70. It's now $1.90. Now, work that out as a percentage. I haven't worked it out. But it's a lot more than the number of percent that they say that current inflation is at. It's important to understand that this is just the beginning to it. Now, I've been watching YouTube channels, and I'll shout them out to you actually. Check out Gregory Mannarino if you haven't already checked him out. He's quite eccentric, but he's not wrong about very much at all. And Neil McCoy Ward, please check him out. He is across this stuff so much more than even I am. So please check him out. But I've been watching their material in particular. And the stark reality of everything is, and there's people been talking about this for some time, but now even mainstream is starting to talk about it. Even the World Bank, the IMF, whatever you want to talk about, those ones have all been starting to talk about this stuff. And of course, they'll mention it when it suits them. They'll mention it when it's a given and it's going to happen. They're talking about a large number of people in this world in the next few years are going to starve. Food shortages are coming. As I said, inflation is rampant, and has been for a while. And it has already been affecting a lot of the third world countries, and we've been oblivious to it. But it's coming up for us. Now, as Neil, Mr. Ward, has mentioned, we're not necessarily going to starve, but we are going to be held to ransom by rampant inflation and the cost of living going up. Cost of living, not just in energy for, power, gas, and obviously you've seen what fuel prices did, but eating, food. So as Neil has mentioned, and I'm going to second it 100%, I'm backing him up on this. That is my thinking and has been for a while. And as I say, I've been preparing for what is coming for a reasonable amount of time now. I did mention on my Twitch not to go panic buy, because panic buying is just silly. We saw that in 2020 when everyone went stupid and went and collected packets of toilet paper, and the toilet paper aisles were always empty. I mean, can you eat that? I've never understood that. I don't think I'm ever going to figure it out. But items especially that you're going to use and they don't ever go off, it's probably not a bad idea to have a decent amount of that stocked up. And it should just be a process where you get some. Pick the items that you want to go get them on special, like when they're half price. A lot of products now you're not going to see half price because of the supply chain issues. They keep saying supply chain issues. Understand that most of that is actually just limited supply. It's not a supply chain issue, it's a limited supply issue. There's a difference between that. But they can't tell you that. They're not going to tell you that. But we're going to see a supply squeeze. That's what's coming. A supply squeeze, a price increase. I could go into a lot more detail than that. I have to be careful about what I talk about on here. On Twitch, I can be a little bit freer. I'm hoping that I can get back on there soon once I've got the technology issues out of the way and fixed up, and I can get on Twitch again. And I'll reference Twitch to here in a video when I get back on there, because I can talk about stuff in more detail there than what I can here. But anyway, just understand that I am not advising. I am doing the process of keeping a good eye open for what is on special, things that are canned, packaged, that can last for, they've got use by dates on some of these things that say it's got to be used within a year or 2 years, but a lot of that stuff can last 10 years and it's not going to be bad. So the main thing is, remember that we hope for the best, but we must be prepared for the worst. And so I am at least just being cautious. And, there are some people out there that are going full-on alarmist about this stuff. And as I always say, any extreme view is wrong. Covered that to do with the stuff that's happened in the last 2 years. There was extreme, no, it's not real, and there was extreme, it's all going to kill us and we're all going to die. Both views stupid. So in this case, it's the same. Just be prepared and do what you can to be prepared. If it isn't an issue where it's a supply issue and things just aren't simply aren't available, which is possible for a period of time, or if it's just simply things go up so crazy in price because there is a limited supply, and you're in a position where you don't have a lot of extra currency to spend on these things at any given time, it's probably a good idea to just be foregoing discretional spending on anything and just using that current currency that you do have to be stocking up on stuff that can last 10 years, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. Stuff that you always use and you always go to get periodically. Just make it that you decrease the amount of time between the period of time you would normally get it and just have extra. That's what I'm doing, and it might seem silly, but as I say, I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that others that are talking about this sort of stuff are wrong, and I'm hoping that it doesn't come to that, because obviously if it comes to that, there are going to be those that aren't ready, and there are going to be those that actually do suffer from that. So just bear that in mind. I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm simply just telling you what I'm doing, as I do on all of my videos. I simply just talk about what I'm doing, what I see happening. And I'm very careful to only share what I truly actually believe in, and what I'm truly convicted of, so that I can come back and I can say, well, I was wrong about that, sorry. Or I can come back and I can say, I hope you heard what I said, and I hope you did what you could do in time to you know, like I said, that's what I say. I'm hoping none of you that are watching this video went and bought a house and really extended yourselves in a huge loan based on the fact that the banks were saying interest rates would not rise for at least 2 years. Well, 2024, from when they were saying that, was almost 3 years. That trapped a lot of people, and I'm hoping you are not one of them. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I realise that this is a 35-minute video, but I really thank you for coming and joining me for this video. And I apologise for having not put out material on here for quite a long time. As I say, was doing stuff on Twitch and really hope to be getting back to that when I can. Technology lets us down, as good as it is most of the time, but when I can get back to it, I will. But thank you for watching this video. If it's helpful, if you think that someone else may benefit from it, please share the video. If you found it helpful, I'd love it if you could hit the like button. That would be really good. If you've happened to be shared this video and you would like to subscribe, I'd love that too. I'm really hoping that I can do some more videos on here. Just bear in mind that I'm going to have to watch what I say on here because I don't really want it removed. I want it to be stuff that helps people wake up, and I can hopefully direct your attention to my Twitch, where I can have a live and frank conversation with anyone that wants to join that when I'm online. And pardon me, we can go into a bit more depth and detail about what's coming, what has already occurred, because there's a lot of stuff that we probably still need to unpack for some people. So I think there's quite a few people still asleep. But that said, thank you for joining me. Yeah, share the video, like the video. I'll see you in the next videos. Hopefully not too long before I put another one out. If you have anything that this video has raised for you that you would like me to go into more depth in, bear in mind there's only a certain amount of depth I can go into. But if there's anything, please put in the comment section. I do read the comments. Please put in the comment section anything that you'd really like me to cover in there, because not only does it give me an idea of something to share, it actually also allows me to understand what other people want described, discussed, unpacked. Because as I say, there's a lot of stuff that does need to be unpacked, especially from the last 6 months and moving forward into this year and the year after. There's a lot of stuff coming. It's going to be pretty difficult for many people. So please share in the comment section anything that you'd like me to cover that might be helpful for yourself or indeed for others. And until next time, I'll see you in many other videos. I really hope so. But until next time, God bless and take care. Bye for now.